Hello, I want to do a wrap up video for my reading month in March. I am very happy with most of the books I read in March. Most of these were 5 stars for me. I didn't read as many books as usual because some of these were longer and took me longer to finish, but they were all very, very good books, and so I'm feeling really good. The first book I read was Mediocre, and unfortunately, I can't say the name of this author. But I did read another book by her a couple of years ago, which is So You Want to Talk About Race, and I really enjoyed it. And I was a little wary about getting into this book, but then I ended up loving it. She did such a great job of presenting a history and just breaking down historic events, and it was a very pleasant reading experience for me. The next book I finished was Catherine the Great by Robert K. Massey, and this book did take me a while to finish. I think I started it last year, so it was very long, but I loved it, and it was the pacing of the book was a little odd, but I ended up really enjoying the story, and I also have his signed copy, so that was really exciting. And I think I picked this up at a thrift store years ago, so this is another great book that I will plan to keep and reread. The next book I finished was John Dies at the End. I loved this book. It took me a while. This was a long book, and it was very complicated. I did have to reread several chapters a couple times, but I loved it. And I have the next book in the series, which is I think this book is full of spiders, and so yeah, I love this author. Very, very good. The next book I finished was this graphic novel of The Great Gatsby. This was a quick read for me, and actually I think it did take me about 2 days, but I really enjoyed it. This was a very, very good retelling of this book through a graphic novel, and I actually loved it. I got so much every time I read The Great Gatsby, which I think I've read it maybe 3 or 4 times now, maybe more. I do feel like I got more out of it. I learned more, and I understood more. So this book definitely helped me in that journey. F. Scott Fitzgerald is definitely one of my favorite authors. So I feel like I do want to keep rereading his books. The next book I finished was a really fun, easy read. This was So Fetch, The Making of Mean Girls. And this is a book I got from the publisher this month, and I read it right away. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really good history book about, I think, the last 20 years. When did Mean Girls come out? Early 2000s, and this was a very good analysis of how the movie was made, how how it took off, and it went into a lot of detail about the casting choices, and also some of the bad stuff, such as the situation with the original author of the self-help book that this movie was based on, and what happened to her in the deal. So I did really enjoy this. I'm not a big fan of Mean Girls, but I do like. I like these types of books. This was a good insight book into basically the making of a phenomenon, I guess. The next book I finished was another quick read. This was The Vegetarian. This was an extremely engaging book. I grabbed it because it won the Man Booker International Prize, which I guess is a little different from the Man Booker Prize, which I didn't actually understand until I finished this book and looked into it. But this was a very, very weird book, and I did like it. I didn't love it, but I did like it. I definitely appreciated the oddness and the uniqueness of this book and the writing. I do want to reread it, maybe. This is something I'm going to hold on to and just think about for a while. The next book I finally finished was Oppenheimer. I started reading this book when I finished watching the movie last year, and I really, really loved the movie. So I immediately picked up the book that night, and it did take a while to get through. I liked most of it. I wasn't as crazy about all the communist back and forth when he was being persecuted. It was a little depressing, and I got kind of tired of it, but I loved everything regarding his family and the science, and really the process of making the bomb and the repercussions of that. That was really interesting to me. The communist portion of the book was a huge part of this, and I almost don't want to recommend it because it is massive and it took me forever, and I think if I do reread it I might skip a few chapters because there's just so much. But anyway, so I don't know, I think it was a good book, but I can't say I recommend everyone to just jump in and read it. Maybe the movie would be a little more fun. The Ninth House is another book I finally finished. I cannot say this author's name. Leigh Bardugo, I think. And I immediately started reading her next book, Hellbent, which is the sequel to this, and I really liked it. This is her first time writing an adult fantasy. I think she's a young adult writer, and I thought this was great. I was really engaged. I really like her storytelling. The writing style is still a little young adulty, but it's more violent. But I mean, it's not like a classic type of book, but the story that she tells is really interesting, and I got really into it. So I recommend that. Finally finished this classic, The Girl with the Pearl Earring, and I really liked it up until about the last quarter of the book when I just started hating it so much. And so this is going to be, I'm going to get rid of this book. It was just too much for me. The way that she was treated at the end made me so angry. And it was going so well for me until just the ending. And no, I don't think I'm going to go through that again. So that's The Girl with the Pearl Earring. And then finally, I just finished The Showman, which is all about Vladimir Zelensky. And I really enjoyed this book. This book was really crazy. It went into a lot of detail about Zelensky coming to power and the invasion, and a lot of history of Ukraine, and the relations with the West and relations with Russia and what they did to try to avoid the war. So this was a lot of really good insider information, and also some speculation about what would happen to Zelensky depending on what happens with Ukraine and what happens with Russia. So I really like this book. I would highly recommend it. This is another book that I got last month from the publisher. So this was really exciting. Really enjoyed this book. So highly recommend it. So I did finish, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I also read Cultish, which I don't have a copy of, and that one I got from the library, and it was okay. It was all about various cults and the rhetoric of cults, and I don't think I'm going to buy myself a copy of that book. It was cute, but if I'm going to read about cults, I want to read a more detailed analysis of a specific cult or something that goes into detail. That book was just kind of all over the place. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see what my reading month this month will be.